felt so impossible to pass in second year. I literally felt like I didn't belong there. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for watching one of my videos once again. If you're here for the second time or the third time but you still haven't subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe. And if you are new here, welcome. I hope you do stay and become a part of my journey as I become Dr. Andy. So around December last year, I decided to start a series called My Journey, where I sit down and share with you my medical school experience. So far in the series, we have one episode where I shared with you how my marks went from the brilliant marks that I got in high school to the marks that I got in first year. If you haven't watched that video, please do go back and watch that video to get the idea of how I was performing in first year, so that this video kind of makes sense. So on this video, I'm gonna be sharing with you my second year experience, which I can say it has been the most difficult experience in my whole medical school career. So I did my second year of med school in 2019, so things might have changed after COVID when it comes to the courses that are being done, the pass marks, the exam formats, but I'm going to share with you exactly how my experience was. As I've said, second year has been the most difficult year for me in medical school, so this video was definitely not the easiest video to shoot, but I've decided that I need to share this experience with you guys so that you might get the idea of how medical school is like. And I want to give you a realistic idea, because it is really not the luxury that you see in vlogs, that you see on Grey's Anatomy. It is hell in here. It is horror, and I'm about to unpack. So on my first day in second year, obviously we went to a lecture which was like an orientation or an intro lecture, and I remember them telling us 25% of you in this class are gonna fail. Like 25% of you in this class are gonna repeat the class. And I was so shocked, and they told us that the statistics has never changed for the past couple of years. It is known that in second year, it is where most medical students get to fail, get to drop out, or get to switch courses, right? And around that time, our class was around 200 to like 220, so which means they were saying at least 50 people are going to repeat the class. So at the beginning of the year, we took this course called Language of Medicine. Most people called it LOM. I think it lasted for 8 weeks, where we were studying only pathology or anatomical pathology. So that course was really intense. Like already in week 1, we were having like 5 to 7 lectures a day. Like from 8 to 5, it is lectures back to back. It was so exhausting, because imagine studying about different topics each and every hour of your day, and then having to go back and making notes about those topics, making sure that you are ahead, because tomorrow they're gonna add 5 more or 7 more of those. It was really exhausting. So during that course, I really found it hard to keep up with the work. I was always behind, even though I would literally work hard, study at night, study during weekends. I couldn't catch up with the work because it was literally a lot. Honestly, the adjustment from high school to university, I don't think you ever master it, because even if I did first year and I passed, in second year I was still trying to adjust from high school to med school, you know, because in high school you get like one topic being taught over a week or over a period of 2 weeks. In medical school, one topic is 45 minutes. After that 45 minutes, someone else come and they teach a totally different topic in that 45 minutes. And keep in mind that it's not only one lecture per day. You're gonna have 5, you're gonna have 7, and that was so hectic for me. So after those 8 weeks, we had an exam testing us on the content that we've covered during those 8 weeks. That exam was counting 5% of our whole year mark. So I wrote that exam. Obviously it was so difficult, because imagine if you have like at least 5 lectures a day for 8 weeks. When you sit down for an exam, you have to memorize all of those lectures. And keep in mind that we were not given enough time to prepare for the exam. I think we only had a weekend. Like our last lecture was on Friday, and then Monday we had an exam. And that is a norm in med school. Whatever year you are in, you will get a week maximum for preparing for an exam, but in that week sometimes you have to cover 6 months content, or you have to cover content for the whole year. So it's never enough. When results came back for that test, I literally barely passed. I think I got like around 54%, of which honestly I was glad that I passed, but I was hoping to get a better mark, because if I'm being tested on 8 weeks content, which means I have a better chance of getting high marks compared to being tested on 6 months content. But that was not the case. So at UCT, what they do in second year, of which I literally believe they have the most ridiculous curriculum, especially in second year. Guys, I am not kidding you. I sometimes think to myself and trying to find the hype about UCT, besides the fact that it is a top university. Because like, yes, you're gonna get a degree from a top university, but at what cost? It is ridiculously hard. It is so hard. I sometimes wish that I went to another university where at least I was gonna have it better. I'm not saying other universities have like the easiest curriculums, but don't tell me that all universities have the same level of difficulty, because UCT is insane. So what they do in second year is that they divide your second year work according to cases. So we had case 1 to 14, and each case is like a system in your body, like your reproductive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, your digestive system. So you would get like amount of weeks to do each case. Some cases were like 4 weeks, I think most of them, and then you move on to the next case. So in that specific case, you learn up to 13 disciplines. I'm talking about anatomy, anatomical pathology, virology, microbiology, biochemistry, physiology. I'm talking about, oh my god, it was literally a lot. Some of them I even forgot. Pharmacology, you know, like the list goes on and on that you had to study in those 4 weeks. So you would have a lecture in anatomy, the next one will teach you about physiology of that specific system, the next one will be like, okay, these are the viruses linked to that system, and then it was like, okay, this is the pathology, and then the next one will come and be like, okay, let's look at the biochemistry now, okay, now these are the drugs to give the person. It was so exhausting. And keep in mind that we didn't have any clinical exposure. I mean, if you are teaching me about TB and the signs of TB, the only way I knew about TB was through lecture slides and a textbook. We never went to see a patient with TB. And that is the thing that made second year so difficult, because I mean, for me personally, I get to remember something better when I can actually see it. You know, I can actually be like, oh, there was this patient, yes, they were coughing blood, yes, they were sweating, yes, they were losing weight, you know, that kind of thing. You know, it's kind of like better for you to remember if you have like an actual real life scenario. So in second year, it was like textbook after textbook after textbook. And it was so hard, even though like we had some sort of like practicals, tutorials, but really it was still difficult. One thing about second year that was also so challenging is the amount of exams you have. So in our second year, the whole year, we had only like 4 exams, excluding the exam for that 8-week course that we took at the beginning. Imagine the amount of work that you have to remember in that exam. And honestly, there is no way to make up for it. If you fail the exam, then your next exam is like 3 months away, your next exam is like 3 months away. Next thing you remember, you are writing your final exam. We also had to take a course called Becoming a Doctor, which had family medicine, clinical skills, isiXhosa and Afrikaans, and all of those 4 courses had exams and they were demanding. So imagine now juggling between this huge biology course that you are doing that's so difficult and content packed, to juggling 4 side courses including languages that you've never done in high school, clinical skills, and family medicine, which was full of assignments and essays that you had to submit. Literally, I was drowning. So now when we started with our case 1, obviously we had to do our anatomy, and now they took us to this room, right? We got into this room. It was literally full of like foggy, like it was like a huge deep freezer, you know, a mortuary. Child, that was it. We got in there and they were like, okay, this is gonna be your dissection room, you're gonna be learning your anatomy. So each group is assigned to a body, you know. They were like, each group is assigned to a cadaver, so go stand next to your I was like, a who? It was my first time hearing that word. You're trying to tell me this room is full of dead bodies and I'm about to cut through a dead body for a living? That was traumatizing. That was so traumatizing, because when we revealed those people, they looked like people, guys. They didn't even look like, okay, this person died years ago, now they look like a doll. No, our cadaver had tattoos and nail polish, body hair. Do you understand? Those people, if you revealed their face, if you knew them, you could tell that this is who and who, this is so and so. And I've heard that there was an incident where somebody's relative was part of the cadavers, so they had to take the relative to Stellenbosch. I don't know how true is that, but child, it is really possible. So basically our anatomy, we were learning it through real people, because we had to cut through dead people before cutting through alive people first. That was the whole logic behind it. But still, I never knew this happened. I literally didn't know that this was a real thing. I thought we were just gonna study from a textbook. To be quite honest, I think it was good exposure to anatomy, but just think about it. You wake up every day, you go to this room was not even smelling that nice. It was not smelling foul, but like it was smelling like the chemicals that they put on those bodies. And you, every time before your lunch, you have to cut open a person, reveal their heart. Today you are revealing their intestines, today you are cutting through their brain, today you are revealing their muscles. That was a lot. So we went to write our first assessment, and honestly it was hard. So what they do is that they will teach you content over months and then test you content for those months in just 1 week. We did not have random tests in between or throughout the semester. We just had an exam week. So if that week arrives and you do not know your work, it means you will fail 100% of your exams. It's not like you will have a test today, you fail that test, you can make up for it because you have another test in 3 weeks. It wasn't like that. It was the way you wafa wafa. I wrote my first assessment definitely it was difficult. I was not ready for that exam. I was still behind with my work. There were lecture slides that I haven't opened. I was sitting on that exam and I was like, is this in my course? This is so interesting to find out. You know, when you read a multiple choice question and you be like, okay, cardiomyopathy is when a heart does this and this and that. You'll be like, interesting. I didn't know about that. Tell me more. That was the situation I found myself under. And it was not because I was studying all of my content and I found it hard to understand. I didn't have time. I didn't have time to revise. I didn't have time to go over some other content even once. So there's no way I'm gonna pass something I've never learned, you know. So it was really difficult. Like sometimes other lectures are not that useful. You go there and someone is just reading off a slide that was made in 2008. So definitely some lectures were useless. Some slides had just like photos in it. You had to go back, find a textbook, or go to YouTube and literally teach yourself the content. So I didn't have time. I didn't have enough time. And on the other hand, I was trying to stay sane. I was trying to balance my life. So I remember I used to go to the gym like immediately after class. Sometimes I would even carry gym clothes in my school bag because I didn't want to waste time to go like back to race from class. So immediately after class I would go to the gym from like 5 till 7 and then start studying at 8. But still that time was not enough. And I would be so exhausted every day. I would be so exhausted every day. Imagine going from 8 to 5 literally every day. It was so exhausting and I literally had no life. Our pass mark was 65%, meaning that if you got a 65, that is a 50. If you got a 64, that's a fail. So I wrote the first assessment and my marks came back 44%. Honestly, it was understandable. I think I saw it coming because of how hard the exam was. And the pill that was hard to swallow for me is that if the pass mark was 50 or at least 60, I could have passed. But I failed the first assessment. So now we moved on to case 3, case 4, case 5, case 6, case 7, and then our June exams came. Same thing happened. Exam week. Keep in mind that during that exam week we have clinical skills exam, family medicine exams, languages exams, where you have to be interviewing a patient in Afrikaans, interviewing a patient in isiXhosa, showing your clinical skills on how to examine a patient, writing those family medicine SAQs. So you had to prepare for about 8 to 10 exams that are gonna happen in a period of like 7 days. I fought, guys. I literally tried everything, pulling all-nighters. It was so difficult. It was so exhausting. And now you have 1 week to revise case 3 to 7 while having to go back to case 1 and 2. It felt so impossible to pass in second year. I was wondering how people do it. I was wondering, how are you getting good marks? You know, I literally felt like I didn't belong there, and that is when my mental state started crumbling. So our assessment 2, which was our June exam, was weighing I think around 22.5%, which was a lot. I needed to get the most out of that because I was trying to collect percentages that will add to at least 50 at the end of the year, right? So I wrote all of these exams and results came back. My marks are still 44%. I was like, damn. But I was like, okay, you know what? I understand because I mean June was more difficult than the first one, so we'll try on third assessment. Now I am left with the September and the final exam, which is November. Do you see how much less chances you have to redeem yourself? So I started knowing about mental health when I came to medical school, because when I was in high school it was not really talked about a lot. I didn't see or I didn't experience people with like mental health, you know, like issues. Like I came to med school and I knew about depression. Now I'm not talking about just like mild depression or just being sad for a couple of days. I'm talking about a DSM-5 diagnosis. I'm talking about admitted to a psychiatric ward. And it's a fact that I didn't only see it around me, I was starting to experience it as well. Like depression, I had so much anxiety. I do not really know how many people took their lives in that year. It is a real thing. I feel like after second year, if it's not every year, somebody commits suicide. I don't know how many protests have been held about this second year curriculum, but they're still not changing it, and they're telling you that this is their way of cutting down students. They literally say that if they make this curriculum a little bit easy, a lot of people are gonna pass, and the hospitals are not in a state to accommodate this much people, so they need to fail people basically so that there could be lesser clinical students. And that was the most messed up thing I've ever heard. You're trying to tell me that you'd rather sacrifice people's lives just because you don't have enough space in the teaching hospitals to accommodate students. And you know, in that year, I don't know how many times I've cried. I don't know how many times I've cried myself every night. I don't know how many times I wished I had a second option, you know. For me, I never had a second option. Like my first option was medicine. I spent so much time trying to look around and see if there's any other degree that I can transfer to, because this was hard. Yes, I want to be a doctor, but at what cost? I was so depressed, and I feel like if I had a second option, I would have transferred to that second option in second year.